Codependency and the secret of how to overcome it in 4 simple steps. That is exactly what I'm going to talk to you about today. You may have noticed in my last video, and I'd like to apologize for the quality of the sound was very poor. There was a lot of noise in the background. Someone might think that my microphone wasn't working properly, but it was actually a downpour of rain. I'm living in Queensland and it was just pouring down, so I do apologize, and I do hope that today's video is a lot easier to understand. So we talk about codependency today, and you may have noticed, if you've watched my last few videos, that I've been talking a lot about conditioning. And today I'd like to let you know how conditioning has affected my life. I actually was conditioned to become a people pleaser and a codependent person who had found somebody to pour herself into. I had found somebody I could care for, because as a people pleaser and a codependent person, that's all I wanted to do. I needed somebody I could care for. And so I found my husband who needed to be needed. And therefore we complemented each other. He was the narcissist who needed somebody who would put his needs first and leave their needs behind. And that was exactly me. And thus we created the so-called cycle of codependency. So let me start with the story how my ex-husband and I worked out. I sacrificed myself and my self-worth to be there for him and to solve problems for him. And there was a lot of problems. And the other thing that happened as well was I told myself that the more problems and the more obstacles there will be along the way for the two of us, the more we will hold together, the stronger our relationship will be. But in reality what happened was that I attracted even more obstacles. And so the marriage of 23 years was nothing but obstacles. And as you can imagine, after a while it wears you out. And I came to the point where I could not continue. If I ask my parents now, they would say, my dad unfortunately passed away in October last year. He may rest in peace. But him and my mom would always say they could see what was wrong in our relationship straight away. For me, I couldn't see any fault in the beginning, whereas for somebody on the outside, they could exactly tell what was wrong. I was the one giving, helping, doing everything and anything for my husband, and he was very happy to take. And later on in the relationship, I would say that he was an energy vampire. But it wasn't his fault, because I allowed him to take all the energy from me. And it took me many years, and also the help of a girlfriend, to actually realize that something was terribly wrong. And for me to finding the courage and stepping out of the relationship in the end. For me, that was the only way out. Of course, there's other ways out. You can work it out together if both partners are willing to do so. In my case, unfortunately, my husband couldn't see anything wrong, so I left. And there is actually a quote I'd like to read out, which really describes my husband's behavior, how I perceived it. It's a quote by Jacqueline Cervantes. So she's saying, concerning the narcissist, after having been so seemingly incredibly loving and gentle, compassionate and caring, it would be like a switch had suddenly been turned off And all of a sudden, they simply did not care. They turned into a cold person, someone without love, compassion, empathy, or regard for the subject's feeling whatsoever. It's like they suddenly and literally stopped being human. And sadly, that's exactly how I perceived my husband. A codependent person is somebody who cannot function without their thinking and their behavior revolving about somebody else. And they excessively care for somebody else. The Merriam-Webster dictionary defines codependency as dependence of the needs of another or control by another. I'd like to tell you 4 simple steps, and it's actually 4 simple steps that I have created my book around. My book, which is called Chains of Wings On, which you can buy on Amazon. My book is all about the 4 simple steps that I'm going to share with you. You can actually use those steps to solve pretty much every problem. The 4 steps are awareness, approach, action, and abundance. So let me get through the steps now. Step number 1, awareness. Why is step number 1 so important? Well, as you know, without self-awareness, you wouldn't even be aware that there was anything wrong in your relationship. So having awareness of problem in your relationship is number 1 to even get you started on your journey to self-discovery, to increasing your self-worth, your self-love, and I would say your journey of self-development and personal growth. So that is step number 1. Step number 2 is called approach in my book. And all it is about is, it is acknowledging that there is a problem. Because as soon as you acknowledge that there is something wrong, you can then find an approach to finding a way out of your situation, or maybe seeking help for you to getting through your problem. And step number 2 is so important because acknowledging the fact that there is something wrong actually makes you want to take the next step, which is action. Step number 3 is action. And of course, action is the most important stepping stone on this journey, because without taking action, nothing will ever change. Imagine you sitting in front of TV for the rest of your life. What's going to change? Nothing. You will continue blaming, playing the victim, thinking everything around you is wrong. But once you are prepared to take action, you are actually on your way to healing yourself. And isn't that wonderful? So very important, step number 3, taking action. The final step, which I call abundance in my book, is wonderful, because at that step you have actually reached your goal. You have actually reaped the reward of going through the trouble of following the steps the way you are supposed to. You were not scared of stepping out of your comfort zone and facing the harder truth. Because let's face it, it's very daunting to all of a sudden face the truth that there is something wrong in your relationship. I remember, for me it was like I didn't look at my life. I thought I was looking at somebody else's life once I was aware of what was wrong. And it was daunting. I couldn't recognize myself. I didn't recognize my life anymore. So congratulations if you're prepared on taking the steps and making a change to the better for yourself. And I can tell you that to do it by yourself, on your own, is the most difficult thing you could ever do. Therefore, I made it my mission to help people who are in similar situations like I have been. Because I have been there. I know what it's like. I know how scary it is, how lonely you feel. You don't want to talk about it. You might not even want to admit that something is wrong. But let me tell you, the reward of recognizing that you live in codependency and taking the steps that are needed to get yourself out of there are priceless. Because you will learn so much on the way, and you will stop blaming your partner. I have done that. I have forgiven him. And I have realized that my share was just as big in the whole problem than his share. But it took me a long time to realize that. I only started learning about myself when I started to learn about human behavior. And that's why I made it my mission to help people like you. So don't be scared to ask for help. Get in touch with me. I would love to take you on the journey of freeing yourself from the chains that you put around yourself. And before I'm finishing this video today, I'd like to take you on a journey and imagine yourself in 10 years' time. If you're not changing anything now, what will happen? Maybe you don't even have to look that far ahead. Maybe just look 1 year ahead. You will still be stuck in the same rut, being unhappy, blaming, playing the victim, thinking that everybody else is wrong and that everything around you is going wrong, even though it's not your fault. That's what you think. And then I want you to imagine what could happen if you started to go on the journey of self-development, of personal growth, of being curious about what wonderful things can happen for you if you are prepared to learn and to grow. If you start loving yourself, if you increase your self-worth, stepping out of the codependency, being free, taking off, spreading your wings. Imagine what will be in 1 year's time. Maybe not quite in 1 year, because after all, let's be honest, the journey does take some time. But it doesn't matter. It's all about the journey. It's not only about the outcome, because from day one, when you say, I want to go on this journey, I want to learn, I want to grow, from day one onwards, you are growing. You are developing as a person on the way to leading a happier life. So imagine yourself in 1, 2, 3, 5 years' time, continuously having worked on yourself and made the decision stepping out of the codependency. Oh my God, can you imagine how freeing it will be? How freeing it will be for yourself, how much self-respect and self-love you will have, and most importantly, how much that will also affect the people around you. The children, your immediate family, your friends, and you are going to attract a whole different kind of people. Isn't that wonderful? So if you are prepared to starting this journey together with me, then please feel free to get in touch with me. I would love to hear from you. because, like I said, my mission is to help people like you, because I have done it, I have freed myself, and I'm so happy. I cannot compare this happiness with anything else. It's the most important and most beautiful thing you can give yourself. So give yourself the gift of getting in touch with me now. I hope you like this brief video and look forward to talking to you soon again. Bye for now.